Hi, and welcome to The Final Wake Up. I'm your host, Madison Palica, holistic health coach, certified heart math mentor, published author of a #1 Amazon new release, and creator of ebooks and courses that help you become the best you possible. I am passionate about bringing light to a world full of darkness and confusion. After becoming deathly ill, as well as severely anxious, and having doctors give me no solutions, I had to find my own way to health. I was mind blown by the things that I was finding, and I became obsessed with helping other people find health and happiness outside of the system too. I'm here to help you become happy and empowered so that you can also live a life full of meaning. You will love The Final Wake Up if you're ready to dodge the traps that this world has set for you. If you want more, you can head to my Instagram page at madison.palica. Join my club at the link in my bio to be the first one to know about sales, product launches, life updates, and to get early access and discounts. And now, on to today's episode. Okay, hello my friends, coming to you live from the 801. We are back in Utah. I really have not been podcasting lately. Life just got really crazy. We moved 2 times in California and then had to move back to Utah, and we've just been getting settled in, building our own business now since my husband lost his job. Just, I don't know, focused on a lot of other things. I was really getting into my business, but I just have been feeling, and Thomas as well, we've been feeling more and more as time goes on that I should not be doing a business. So here I am, not talking anything related to business. I am talking today about what I see going on in the world, which is really what excites me. I'm excited to be doing more of this type of content, kind of just like the stuff that I was doing when I initially started this podcast. So really excited to dive into it. I have just been like marveling lately at the things going on in real life pertaining to the Bible. And there is a lot to talk about concerning prophecy, concerning Israel, lots and lots of stuff. But this one specifically, I'm going to save kind of the prophecy and how it all ties in for the next podcast. So I'll do a part 1 today and then a part 2 next time. And in this one specifically, I want to talk about things going on in American politics, specifically having to do with anti-Semitism, free speech, hate speech, and just biblical perspectives. Long story short, what I'm talking about is the current criminalization of the Bible. You heard that right. Criminalization of the Bible. Coming down the pipeline from your conservative leaders. What? Who would have thought? Yup. Conservative leaders are the ones doing this. Okay, so this comes from AP News. It says, lawmakers in more than a half dozen U.S. states are pushing laws to define anti-Semitism, triggering debates about free speech and bringing complicated world politics into state houses. So these are anti-Semitism, hate speech laws, essentially moving to deem hatred of Jews as illegal. Okay. What's interesting to me to note is that this is happening in the wake of the Israel-Palestine war happening right now. And they're like the difference between being anti-Zionist and anti-Zionism is being muddied into just this all-out anti-Semitism, which I would say are definitely not the same thing. But how does one tell the difference? Is being anti-Zionist inherently anti-Semitic? Like, where does someone fall on that spectrum? What's okay? What's not okay? I think that's kind of what's pushing these discussions and these laws. But what's interesting is that every single one of these laws is using the same definition of anti-Semitism. I believe that these bills, I think it's been in like 3 states so far, maybe up to 5. I read through this article, couldn't find specifically, like clearly outlined the states that this was happening in. I believe it's Georgia, Indiana, and South Dakota. I could be wrong. There could be more. It could be different states. But I know there are at least 3, okay? Beyond those 3 states, though, Anomaly, who I listen to a lot, highly recommend that you listen to his podcasts. He is a very straightforward, unbiased, and will actually just tell the truth. He does not really pick sides. He just is really objective, so I like listening to him. But he's been mentioning lately that Donald Trump did push an anti-Semitism executive order in 2019. Okay, Trump did this. And then DeSantis also pushed an anti-Semitism bill through in 2023. This is from NBC News in 2023 from Jerusalem. It says, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed legislation cracking down on hate crimes Thursday morning after a high-profile speech in Israel. Known as the Public Nuisances Bill, the legislation, passed Wednesday by the legislature, makes it a felony for hate groups to harass people for their religion or ethnicity. Florida had the fourth highest number of anti-Semitic incidents last year, according to the Anti-Defamation League. I'm going to take a break here from the article and just read to you a little bit about the Anti-Defamation League, or the ADL, which I would say is a left-wing organization. And this comes from a website called Mondo Weiss. I don't know what it is, but it's a publication for news concerning the US and Israel. So it's like a US-Israel news source. And it says, the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, is a nonprofit organization founded in 1913. Masquerading as a civil rights group, the ADL is a counterinsurgency organization with international reach. Its mission is to protect the mutual interests of the US and Israeli governments, and to eliminate solidarity among oppressed and colonized peoples, especially concerning Palestine. The ADL carries out this mission by spying on and criminalizing activists, using its close connections to governments, police forces, schools, and corporations. When it's not directly attacking activists and organizers, the ADL undermines their work by pushing its own state-sanctioned pro-Israel programs. And while the ADL claims to represent Jews and to fight anti-Semitism on their behalf, the organization has a record of supporting anti-Jewish state violence and normalizing Nazis, which is its own confusing thing in itself. How do you fight anti-Semitism but also support anti-Jewish things? I don't really know. All this to say is that the ADL is a very suspect organization, okay? So the ADL that calls everything anti-Semitism said that Florida had like the fourth highest number of anti-Semitic incidents that year, which I guess must have prompted DeSantis to push this bill through. Going back to the NBC article about DeSantis, it says, DeSantis is in Israel as a part of his overseas trade mission with stops in Japan and South Korea. He also met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday before he wrapped up the global trip in the United Kingdom. He's a friend of Israel, Netanyahu said. And I'll just end that one there. So Trump, DeSantis, and now multiple states trying to push this hate speech law through. It is becoming increasingly important to add a definition that lays out how to determine whether criticism of Israel also amounts to hatred of Jewish people. So what is this definition that they are all, every single one of these bills, every single one of these people, the definition they are all using? Like, how does one actually define hate? Hate could mean a lot of different things. How are you supposed to outlaw hate in speech? Like, isn't our speech as Americans protected? Isn't it free? With the rise of censorship in 2020, you might not think so anymore. Freedom of speech, not reach, is what I think it was like the new CEO, someone high up in X said that. X, formerly known as Twitter, essentially meaning you can say whatever you want. We just won't let people actually see what you're saying. So, like, shout out to the void, essentially. But beyond the censorship, these hate speech laws also set out to monitor and potentially penalize or criminalize our supposedly free speech, which obviously has Americans concerned. And it's interesting which Americans are not concerned. And when I say this, I'm referring to the Republican Party, conservative media talking heads who will not address this kind of stuff because it seems like they care more about Israel than addressing these issues going on that are potentially in violation of the First Amendment. So, Continuing. What is the actual definition of anti-Semitic hate speech? The definition comes from the IHRA, okay? The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. And I'm going to read the whole definition to you with like the 10 or 11 different points or like examples they give as to what would be considered anti-Semitism. I'll read that list to you, and then I'll go back through a couple of those points and just give you some more information and examples. So this is directly from the IHRA website. It says, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions, and religious facilities. Okay, so that sounds fine and dandy, but what does that actually mean in action? These are the examples they are giving of things that would be considered anti-Semitism. Contemporary examples of anti-Semitism in public life, the media, schools, the workplace, and in the religious sphere could, taking into account the overall context, include, so they could include, but they are not limited to, here's the list of examples. 1. Calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of a radical ideology or an extremist view of religion. Okay, makes sense. 2. Making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews or about the power of Jews as a collective, such as, especially, but not exclusively, the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy or of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions. So making demonizing claims about Jews or a collective of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions. Lots to say about that, but I will come back. Number 3, accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person or group, or even for acts committed by non-Jews. 4, denying the fact, scope, mechanisms, i.e. gas chambers, or intentionality of the genocide of the Jewish people at the hands of the National Socialist Germany and its supporters and accomplices during World War II, for example, the Holocaust. So if you deny the Holocaust, anti-Semitic. Number 5, accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust. 6, accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations. Okay, which I a little bit already talked about, but I will come back to that. Number 6, denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination, for example, by claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor. What was that, 6, 7? I think this is 7. Applying double standards by requiring of it a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. 8. This one's a real kicker. 8. Using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism. For example, claims of Jews killing Jesus or blood libel. So using those things to characterize Israel or Israelis. I will definitely come back to that one. Okay, I think that was all of the bullets. So let me come back and go through these with a little bit of my own commentary. Okay, so going back to the one about making allegations about Jews and the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy or Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions. On that point, I did a little bit of research, looked some things up. And one of the first articles that comes up says, Congress is now, this is by the Israeli News, Congress is now 3 times as Jewish as the US is. Jews make up only 2% of the nation's population, but have 34 representatives in Congress, or 6% of the 535 lawmakers in both chambers. So this is really Times saying Congress is 3 times as Jewish as the US is. So they're not taking the percent of Jews in the US population and matching that in Congress. There's more people in Congress representing Jews than there are in the US population. The next thing to this point is, this is something that Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire wrote, I don't even know how long ago. Anomaly or Dreamer talked about this. He will never say this stuff anymore, not on the Daily Wire, unless he wants to get fired the way that Candace Owens did. But this is something that he really wrote before he was with the Daily Wire. He titled it, Bow Before Israel, Unless You're an Anti-Semite. And now people are wondering, is the Daily Wire going to get rid of him because of things he said in the past? Or is he just going to like stay in line so he doesn't lose his job? And this is a little bit long, but I just want to read this to you. Okay, this is January 7th, 2013 on Matt Walsh's blog. Okay. And I'm just taking clips here and there from the article. I won't read the entire thing, but this is what he wrote in 2013. 10 years ago, okay? Obama has nominated former Republican Senator Chuck Hagel to be our new Secretary of Defense. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Yawn. I'm right there with you. After all, our foreign policy has been an unmitigated catastrophe for many years, and I doubt that it will change as long as these bumbling, Botoxed Dr. Evils are running the show. Still, I'm contractually obligated to care about this stuff, so bear with me as I give it a shot. The Hagel pick is being called controversial. Shocking, I realize. Our lives are apparently so empty and miserable that we have to make everything into a controversy just to give us something to talk about. In fact, I think our obsession with controversy is itself becoming rather controversial. Let's argue about that for a few days. So, why has Chuck Hagel become the latest outrage? Well, evidently he's been pretty harsh towards Israel. And by harsh towards Israel, I mean he was once walking across the street with Prime Minister Netanyahu after a rainstorm, and he didn't lay down in a puddle so that Netanyahu could walk on top of him so as to avoid getting his feet wet. That's all it takes to be labeled anti-Israel nowadays. So he's saying, oh, he's called anti-Israel because he didn't literally lay down in a puddle for Netanyahu to walk over him to avoid the water, you know? And it's like, oh, you didn't do that, you must hate Israel, you must be anti-Israel. Walsh continues, here are Hagel's actual controversial remarks that have been enough to make him a 21st century Hitler. This is what he said. I'm not an Israeli senator, I'm a United States senator. Gasp, shock, outrage, anti-Semite. On another occasion, he hatefully growled, the Jewish lobby intimidates a lot of people up here. Scandal, hate crime, arrest this man. Ironically, the reaction to his Jewish lobby comment actually proves his point rather effectively. And what exactly is the problem with what he said? Are we now denying that a Jewish lobby exists? There's a lobby for everyone and everything. There's a Christian, Muslim, gay, old people. Even the buildings have lobbies. Lobbies, aside from the architectural structures, are in the business of intimidating and bribing and buying. It's what they all do. But anytime a politician has the gumption to point it out, the peanut gallery has him tossed out the swinging doors like a drunk guy in an old Western movie. We're ridiculous. All of us. What the hell is wrong with us? We punish people for making truthful statements and then turn around and whine, why won't anyone tell the truth? Because they don't want to be tarred and feathered by a violent mob of self-contradicting nitwits. That's why. Only people who have never told the truth into a microphone don't understand why people are hesitant to tell the truth into a microphone. Pretty good. He continues on. It's astoundingly stupid that anyone would attack Hagel for simply stating that he's not an Israeli senator and his primary loyalty is to the United States. Shouldn't they all say that? Is there a man or woman in the Senate who actually disagrees with his sentiment? If so, kindly point them out so they can be arrested for treason, because that's what it is, isn't it? When you put the interests of a foreign government over that of your constituents? Facts. Mic drop. True. He goes on, and there's just a little bit more of this. He says, it makes zero sense for United States citizens to be ideologues when it comes to Israel. I'm not for or against them. I don't get into this mindless game of developing a position on an entire country. What's next? Are we going to kill each other to defend the honor of our favorite color? It's hard enough dealing with our own corrupt government. It's almost impossible to do it on an international scale. Because that's what we're talking about, by the way. When you say, I support Israel, you are saying, I support the Israeli government. You might claim you support their people and not their government, but the $3 billion a year, the diplomatic favors, the military assistance, all of that goes to their government. How could so many conservatives who are so rightly skeptical of our government have such a childish love for a foreign government? We're asking the same thing. He says, I'm not a Chuck Hagel expert. Surprisingly, I've never had much of a need in my life to know or care about some guy named Chuck from Nebraska. Maybe there's a good reason to oppose him. Maybe he skins puppies like Cruella de Vil. Maybe he drinks from the public water fountain with his mouth directly on the nozzle. Maybe he's the worst person in the history of this week. But if his only crime is refusing to buy Netanyahu a friendship bracelet and invite him over for a sleepover, I've got no problem with the guy. But I do have a problem with the fools who would call you a neo-Nazi because you'd rather have that $3 billion a year stay in American households rather than Israeli politicians' wallets. This was in 2013. Is this not exactly what's happening now? Like, I'm pretty sure they just passed a spending bill of like 1 point something trillion dollars, and most of it is going to Israel and Ukraine. It's like, why are we giving money when we're in debt? Makes absolutely no sense. Still staying on this point, because I just have a bone to pick, is basically this hate speech law is saying that you're not allowed to say that Jews control the media. Well, on the topic of Jews in the media, this is on Wikipedia. You can look it up. The list is so long. I only put some of the really prominent examples, like things that stood out to me. And this is for like news, TV, music, movies, that kind of stuff. These are Jews in American media. Number 1, Edward Bernays. All right. He is the pioneer in the field of public relations and propaganda. What? A Jewish guy leading the charge for propaganda? What? Crazy. I had to study this guy so much because my major was public relations and we had to learn about this guy. I didn't know he was Jewish, but definitely learned about him. Okay. Herb Abramson, the founder of Atlantic Records. Edgar Bronfman Jr., former CEO of Warner Music Group. Lyre Cohen, co-founder of 300 Entertainment and former president of Def Jam Recordings. Okay, these are some of the biggest like music labels in American history. Okay, keep that in mind. Jody Gerson, chairman of the Universal Music Publishing Group, or UMPG. Doug Morris, chairman of Sony Music Entertainment, former chairman and CEO of the Universal Music Group, and founder of Big Tree Records. Rick Rubin. Okay, I did not know that he was Jewish. You might have seen his book going around. It's about like creativity or something. I see a lot of people talking about it, and it's got a big circle with a dot on the front of it. That circle with the dot, I believe, is the old, like one of the old symbols for the sun. And Laura Singer talks about it in a Blurry Creatures episode. It's called the circumpunct, and basically it's used in ritual, and it's like casting a magic circle. So this is Rick Rubin, co-founder of Def Jam Recordings and former co-president of Columbia Records. Larry Rudolph, co-founder of Maverick Management, manager of Britney Spears. That's what stood out to me. I'm like, okay, with all the Britney Spears controversy, this guy was her manager. Okay, Jewish. Larry Waronker, former president of Warner Brothers Records and co-chairman of DreamWorks Records. Bennett Cerf, co-founder of Random House, one of the biggest book publishers in America. Jerry Finkelstein, former publisher of the New York Law Journal and The Hill. Milton Glaser, I had to learn about him too. Co-founder of the New York Magazine and creator of the I Love New York logo. That one's kind of random, kind of cool, but New York Magazine. Don Katz, founder of Audible. I just started using Audible, love it, but I download it and the first thing I realize is like, oh, their app icon kind of looks like the Freemason symbol. Just a little bit looks like the square and compass, like the bottom part of it. Yes, it could look like a book opening, but it also looks like the square and compass, guys. What do you know? He's Jewish. Larry Kirschbaum, former chief of publishing for Amazon Publishing and CEO of Time Warner Book Group. Meredith Levien, CEO of the New York Times Company. Jay Levin, founder of LA Weekly. Ross Levinson, former publisher of the Los Angeles Times, CEO of Tribune Interactive, and former president of Fox Interactive. David J. Pecker, chairman and CEO of American Media Incorporated. And then it has in parentheses, the National Enquirer, Us Weekly, Star, Flex, Globe, and Men's Fitness. So he runs all those through American Media. Josh Topolsky, sorry if I'm butchering these names, I don't know. Co-founder of Vox Media, founder of digital media company The Outline. Helen Valentine, founder of 17 magazine. Jan Wenner, co-founder of The Rolling Stone. Richard Saul Wurman, co-founder of TED, like TED Talks. Avi Arad, founder of Marvel Studios, LLC. Something Ashley, the first name got cut off, chairman of Warner Brothers and vice chairman of Warner Communications, founder of the Ashley Famous Talent Agency. Gary Barber, CEO of Metro Goldwyn Mayer, or MGM, and co-founder of Spyglass Media Group. Lloyd Braun, owner of Whale Rock Industries, former chairman of the ABC Entertainment Group. Alan Braverman, general counsel of the Walt Disney Company. Barry Diller, chairman of Interactive Corp, former CEO of Paramount Pictures and Fox Incorporated. John Feltheimer, CEO of Lionsgate Entertainment Corp. Reuben Frank, broadcast executive and former president of NBC News. Fred Friendly, former president of CBS News. Jeff Gaspin, former chairman of NBC Universal Television Entertainment. Harvey Levin, founder of TMZ. Lorne Michaels, creator of Saturday Night Live. Okay, which brings me back to the propaganda piece. It's like Saturday Night Live is meant to make jokes of current events with a spin. Jewish. Arnon Milchan, founder of Regency Enterprises, co-founder of Summit Entertainment, and former Israeli spy. Former Israeli spy, founded Summit Entertainment. Co-founder of Summit Entertainment. A literal Israeli spy, now in charge, like, of American media. Summit Entertainment. I'm just gonna look up Summit Entertainment and see, like, what's good. Little side quest here on the podcast. Let's see. Summit Entertainment, LLC. An American film production and distribution company. Its website is literally lionsgate.com. It's a label of the Lionsgate films, owned by Lionsgate Entertainment. And the Lionsgate guy was also Jewish. Okay. So let's see. What movies have come out of Summit Entertainment? Holes. Holes was Around the World in 80 Days, Resident Evil Apocalypse, Sahara, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Babel, Step Up, Bridge to Terabithia, lots of stuff, Twilight, Book of Eli, yeah, a lot of stuff. Seeing if there's anything, like, particularly interesting. Perks of Being a Wallflower, Sinister. Oh, wow, yeah, there's a lot. Upcoming movies. Jesus of Nazareth. Wonder if that'll have some kind of spin on it. Surely not. Surely not. It's just Jews who hate Jesus. Surely they wouldn't what's the word? Misconstrue Jesus? Surely not. Surely not. Okay, continuing this side quest into Arnon Milchan, the Israeli spy who went on to create American media companies. He is an Israeli billionaire businessman, film producer, and former spy. He's been involved in 130 full-length motion pictures, blah, blah, blah. So he was also an Israeli intelligence operative from the mid-1960s to the mid-1980s. Also, in January 2024, Forbes estimated this guy's net worth at 3.3. Oh, look at that. 33 in there. At 3.3 billion US dollars, the 13th wealthiest person in Israel. All right. So he was born in Palestine, which is now Israel, to a Jewish family. Allegedly, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu asked the US Secretary of State John Kerry 3 times in 2014 to arrange a long-term visa for this guy, Milchan, to live in the United States. But the bribery charges against Netanyahu have since been called into question. Milchan does not live in Israel and has not been there since 2016. His business career, he inherited his dad's fertilizer company after his dad died suddenly. He turned it into a successful chemical business. He earned a degree from the London School of Economics before him and his company, the Milchan Brothers Limited, were recruited to Lechem, a secret Israeli intelligence organization responsible for obtaining technology and material for Israel's nuclear program and other highly secretive programs. Like, what? This guy's doing stuff for Israeli nuclear weapons and then comes to make movies in America? So he became involved in the US movie business in 1977. Notice they said that he was a spy through the 1980s. So while he's working in American media, he is still an Israeli spy. So he got introduced to American producer Elliot Kastner, worked on a series in 1981, developed close friendships with Robert De Niro, Roman Polanski, Oliver Stone. And then in the 90s, he started his own production company in partnership with the Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, and others. He's made 130 films. JFK is one. That's kind of interesting. Fight Club, kind of interesting. Married a model, blah, blah, blah. He's the owner of a network which transmits Israeli television programming to the United States and Canada. Who's doing that? What is this network? He's also a part owner of Israel's TV channel 10 and a former owner of Puma, the sportswear line. Okay, intelligence career. Speculation about Milchan's involvement in arms dealing and intelligence activities was sparked after the indictment in 1985 of Dr. Richard Kelly Smith, an aerospace executive and scientist who had made illegal shipments of krytrons, which could be used as nuclear weapon triggers, through one of Milchan's companies. This remained largely in the category of rumor until biographers Meir Daron and Joseph Gelman wrote a controversial, unauthorized biography of Milchan that was published in July 2011. That sounds interesting. The biography, Confidential, that's the name of it, Confidential, which is largely sympathetic to Milchan, revealed in detail how he involved himself in espionage, big-ticket arms dealing, and obtaining sensitive technology and materials for Israel's nuclear weapons program. The research in the book, Confidential, The Life of Secret Agent turned Hollywood Tycoon, established that at least through the mid-1980s, Milchan was a full-fledged operative for Israel's top-secret intelligence agency, Lechem. His activities included buying components to build and maintain Israel's nuclear arsenal, and supervising government-backed accounts and front companies that financed the special needs of the entirety of Israel's intelligence operations outside the country. Interviewed regarding Milchan's intelligence activities, Israeli President Shimon Peres stated, "Arnon is a special man. It was I who recruited him when I was at the Ministry of Defense. Arnon was involved in numerous defense-related procurement activities and intelligence operations. His strength is in making connections at the highest levels. His activities gave us a huge advantage, strategically, diplomatically, and technologically." 2 years on the Channel 2 documentary program Uvda, Milchan confirmed on camera the central claims in the book that had been released. This announcement caused international interest in the story and was covered widely. Perez, the architect of Israel's secret nuclear weapons program in the 1960s, stated that in the 60s he recruited Milchan to work for the Israeli Bureau of Scientific Relations, also known as LACHEM, a secret intelligence organization tasked with obtaining military technology and science espionage. Milchan acknowledged that he was a secret arms dealer for the Israeli government and claimed to have used his connections to promote the apartheid regime in South Africa in exchange for it helping Israel to claimed to have used his connections to promote the apartheid regime in South Africa in exchange for it helping Israel to acquire uranium for its nuclear program. In June 2023, Milchan provided some details about the friendship he developed with future Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during his time as an intelligence officer, with the two having gone from being simple acquaintances to knowing each other like brothers. The controversy there is that Netanyahu was charged with bribery. This is what the Israeli police recommended, that Netanyahu be charged with bribery. It's nicknamed Case 1000. And it relates to alleged bribes that Milchan provided to Netanyahu in exchange for special tax exemption legislation believed to benefit Milchan in his homeland of Israel. The proposed legislation, nicknamed Milchan's Law, dates back to 2013 and was an alleged ploy to extend Milchan's status as a returning resident to allow him to take advantage of tax breaks. According to police, the gifts from Milchan were worth more than 1 million shekels. Milchan had held fundraisers for Netanyahu, which included a 2014 event at a residence on Carbon Beach in Malibu that controversially inconvenienced residents and commuters with hours of unexpected lane blockages on the PCH, despite being a private event. So he's this huge guy in Hollywood holding a fundraiser for Netanyahu in California. On June 5th, 2023, Milchan began his first day of testimony as a prosecution witness in Case 1000, and acknowledged that he gave the Netanyahu family numerous gifts and used code names for the gifts, which were exchanged as well. However, he claimed he never thought the gifts would qualify as legal issues, as they were requests which were related to his friendship with the Netanyahus and not demands. Oh, he's also an art collector. We're talking about money laundering, potential trafficking here, okay? An art collector. In April 2015, CNBC ranked him at number 3 in their list of Hollywood's top 10 art collectors, with a collection valued at $600 million. Wow. Just the fact that he's still making American movies after all of these political controversies he's been involved in, that is so crazy. Was working for Israel's nuclear program. So there was another guy named Jonathan Pollard who was in the United States Navy and was conducting espionage on behalf of Israel, and he was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. Meanwhile, this guy's still one of the top richest billionaires and making movies. All right, anyways, that's my little side tangent on this guy. Okay, back from the side quest. So that is a small portion of the list of Jewish American business people in American media. All this to say that if someone makes a mention that a lot of our big time news, media, music, book companies are created by or run by Jews, is that now anti-Semitic? You can't even point out the truth without it being illegal? You can't have an opinion about it? Illegal? Okay, interesting. So I go on to do a little bit more research about Jews and media. You know Kanye's been talking about this, okay? I hope you've seen that one clip of him that's I don't even know what he was talking about, but he's I'm not gonna say who it was. I'm not gonna say this doctor's nationality or race. He was a Jew.
The thing about the red hat that drove me to a point of exhaustion, which was misdiagnosed by I'm not going to say what race, what people, doctor, and what hospital, and what media went to. We know I can't say that. It was a Jewish doctor.
So funny. Something like that. I really butchered it, I know. Anyways, so I'm looking this up. Jewish in American media. And I found an article by the Jewish Telegraphic Agency talking about Dave Chappelle, who I think went on Saturday Night Live and talked about this whole anti-Semitic thing and Kanye and all of that. So it says, Chappelle, who was himself riffing on recent anti-Semitism controversies, including Kanye West and Kyrie Irving, wasn't exactly breaking new ground by insinuating that Jews run Hollywood. The trope has been a part of show business since its earliest days, when, in a literal sense, Jews did run Hollywood. This is by the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, saying themselves, Jews did run Hollywood, or the studios anyway. Nearly every major movie studio was founded in the early 20th century by a group of first-generation secular Jews who immigrated to the United States from Eastern Europe. Carl Laemmle, Universal, Adolf Zukor, Paramount, William Fox, Fox, Louis B. Mayer, MGM, and Benjamin Warner were all Jewish silver screen pioneers, laying the groundwork for the size and scale of the industry to follow. All these guys were Jews, okay? So this is just me saying I don't like this definition of saying you're not allowed to say, because it's hate speech, that Jews run the media, because they quite literally have since its inception. Illegal. Can't say it anymore. The next point I want to riff on is this one that says, accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations. So saying, basically, this is kind of what we've been seeing lately in regards to Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, and the incident with Candace Owens, with them ultimately separating paths, going their own ways, and ending their relationship because Candace has been speaking about Israel. So in this case, saying that Ben Shapiro, who has not talked about these speech laws, and who distanced himself from Candace Owens after she spoke in ways Ben Shapiro may not like or agree with about Israel, some might say, oh, it seems like Ben Shapiro is ultimately being more loyal to Israel than to America. Not allowed to say that under these laws. That's anti-Semitic. You cannot say that someone who is Jewish has more loyalty to Jews and to Israel than the country they live in. How is that anti-Semitic? How? And yeah, Ben Shapiro, he does not point out the speech laws getting passed. He does not bring up concerns about freedom of speech in America. He is very protective of Israel. So is it illegal to maybe insinuate or to ask the question, is he more loyal to a foreign country than to America? Are we no longer allowed to speak our opinions or the truth? The next point I want to talk about, these will get a little bit shorter, is denying Jewish people their right to self-determination, for example, by claiming that the existence of the State of Israel is a racist endeavor. I don't know so much about the whole racist part of this, but the State of Israel was created with the Balfour Declaration, which was a letter from some high-ranking Brit to a Rothschild, okay, expressing Britain's support of Israel as a nation. I don't know why people would say that Israel being created is racist, but in my opinion, it's definitely cause for concern whenever a Rothschild's involved, right? And the most important part of all of this is this line in the definition of anti-Semitism that says, using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism. For example, claims of Jews killing Jesus, or blood libel, to characterize Israel or Israelis. Now, I did not know what blood libel is. I asked ChatGPT. You might have your feelings and opinions on ChatGPT, but whatever, I used it right here. And Chat says, blood libel refers to a false and malicious accusation that members of a certain group, typically Jews, engage in the ritual murder of children or others, often with the aim of using their blood for religious rituals. I had no idea about this. This accusation has been historically leveled against Jews, particularly in medieval Europe, and has been used to fuel anti-Semitism and justify violence and persecution against Jewish communities. The origins of blood libel can be traced back to medieval Europe, where Jews were often marginalized and scapegoated for various societal problems. Blood libel accusations typically arose in the context of Christian Europe during times of social, economic, or political turmoil. The accusations were based on unfounded myths and stereotypes about Jewish practices, including allegations that Jews kidnapped and murdered Christian children for ritualistic purposes, such as using their blood in Passover matzos, or unleavened bread. I have never heard of this. These accusations were not only false, but also deeply harmful, leading to violent expulsions. There's another word there, but I don't know how to say it. Expulsions and legal persecution of Jewish communities, despite being debunked by historical evidence and condemned by religious and political leaders. Blood libel accusations have persisted throughout history and continue to surface in some contexts today. It's essential to recognize blood libel as a dangerous form of hate speech that has led to the suffering and persecution of innocent people. Vigilance against anti-Semitic rhetoric and the promotion of accurate historical understanding are crucial in combating this harmful phenomenon. So, like, I don't even know about this. The only thing I know about with, like, killing children in a ritualistic fashion is, like, the underground cults, like occult cults. Maybe these are the false Jews. I don't really know. I've never heard of blood libel till just now. But mainly what I wanted to focus on was claims of Jews killing Jesus being labeled classic anti-Semitism. Because how does that not automatically regard an entire religion anti-Semitic? The book, the people, the whole religion. So this is what's being passed into law. Law. Let that sink in. Claims of Jews killing Jesus are now classic anti-Semitism according to law passed by Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, and multiple state governors. Or Congress people, whoever it is. Law. This is literally criminalizing lines and verses of the Bible. And if you say them, it may be a felony? I think is what it said earlier, a felony. So this means that speaking the Bible is maybe illegal. Verses in the Bible will be anti-Semitic. And again, like, if the whole point of Christianity is that Jesus died and came to life again, wouldn't all of Christianity and every single Christian be automatically deemed anti-Semitic? Anomaly said, which I can't find this myself, I didn't search all that hard, but Anomaly said that Candace Owens had a debate with an Israeli rabbi, and that apparently this rabbi said that the original anti-Semite was Jesus. Okay, so that's like a little bit of a head scratcher there. Jesus, who loves everyone, was the original anti-Semite. Interesting, okay. So, again, these verses don't necessarily implicate all Jews, but these are some of the verses that came to mind when thinking about what from the Bible might be criminalized. John chapter 19, verse 6, this is the NIV version, says, "As soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, 'Crucify, crucify!' But Pilate answered, 'You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him.'" So this verse is highlighting the role of the chief priests in calling for Jesus' crucifixion. But again, it doesn't necessarily implicate all the Jews as a people, okay? Another one is Matthew chapter 27, verses pretty much 22 to 26, okay? This is NIV again, and it says, "What shall I do then with Jesus who is called the Messiah?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." And it says, this passage depicts a crowd calling for Jesus' crucifixion, but again, it's essential to recognize that it may not represent the views of all Jewish people. Okay. Going on to verses 24 through 26 of the NIV version, says, "When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water, washed his hands in front of the crowd. 'I am innocent of this man's blood,' he said. 'It is your responsibility.' All the people answered, 'His blood is on us and our children.'" So, like, these are things that they're saying that New Testament is so anti-Semitic. And they're saying, like, oh, it just paints Jews in a bad light. Or is it just painting something that happened? You know? And if you say that that happened because the Bible says it, now you're an anti-Semite and you could be legally punished. And then another thing that I think irks Jews is the association of Jews with Satan, which was reinforced in the Gospel of John when Jesus says to a group of Pharisees, "You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires." So again, something that, again, yeah, I mean, as a Jew, it's for sure can see how they're like, oh, that is terrible. We're not of the devil, but these are Jesus's words. Jews some of them see Jesus as an anti-Semite. So, you know, I don't know what to say. It's like, are the views of these few Jews who think that way supposed to be codified into law and held against every Christian? I don't know. So the murder of Jesus was Jewish and Roman, okay, in origin. They each played their part. To acknowledge this as a historical and religious fact is absolutely not anti-Semitic. Christ teaches his followers to love everyone, even as you love yourself. Some Christians are even the biggest proponents of Israel during this war. I know there is a lot of different opinions. I personally don't love war ever, and the creation of Israel is sus to me. But some Christians are really very much for it. Some Christians are proudly, openly Zionist. Can you be Zionist and anti-Semitic at the same time? I don't know. Can you be anti-Zionist and not be anti-Semitic at the same time? Absolutely. But I don't know if people see it that way. So, but like also thinking about these Christians who are really strongly Zionist, how are these people supposed to feel when they're no longer allowed to say verses of their Bible without being called anti-Semitic? And they're like, whoa, wait. We are proud proponents of Zionism. Like, we are all for Zionism. That's the thing with speech loss, is you try to ban something you don't like today, tomorrow they're coming after you too. And then these Christian Zionists are going to realize, oh my gosh, my leaders have been working against me this whole time when I thought that we were on the same side. That is why I want to tell you that Trump signed an executive order for this in 2019, and DeSantis did in 2023, and more people are following suit. Yeah, just wolves in sheep's clothing, and a lot of people don't see it, and I want you to be able to see it. Just the significance of these issues in today's society and why they matter in the context of current events in the Bible. It matters. It affects us. It affects people all over the world. It affects Christians of the future. And of course, our freedom of speech matters. America should come first as Americans. It matters that our so-called Christian leaders, like Trump now out here selling his own Bible, profiting off the Bible, while meanwhile signing in anti-Semitism hate speech laws that will criminalize the Bible. So-called Christian leaders, they are passing the laws that will criminalize the Bible, or at least parts of it, and this definitely, I would say, is an attack on Christians. This is also an attack on truthers for sharing their conspiracy theories about Jews and the cabal, and I think of the synagogue of Satan, who are Jews, but who call themselves Jews, but are liars, okay? All of this is just going to lead to further persecution of Christians. We have already been under attack, but this is the first time that it's really being written into real law that can be carried out. Okay, punishment can really be carried out with these laws. And this is happening in the context of this Israeli-Palestinian war happening in Gaza. And all of this matters when it comes to fulfillment of prophecy. So getting into the prophecy that are happening, that have happened in recent years and are very much happening now. Things like the war, things like the temple, things like the red heifer, things like this eclipse. Those are the things that I kind of want to get into coming up. So we are going to talk about what's happening prophetically in part 2. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe, follow along, turn on your notifications so that you can see that part 2, because that is really where the exciting part of this comes in. So yeah, that is today's podcast, just talking about the intersection of hate speech laws, anti-Semitism, and the Bible. Very important to understand these issues in today's society and just the implications it has for freedom of religion, freedom of speech. So yeah, I encourage you guys to educate yourselves further on this and what's happening. I encourage you to talk to people about what's happening, because I think a lot of people are largely unaware, in a constructive way. Okay, constructive dialogue. If this opened your eyes to anything, if this made you say, wow, send this podcast to whoever you think of, maybe your friends, maybe your family, someone at your church, whoever you think would be blessed and interested in this, go ahead and send this to them. Just start this conversation, you know? And yeah, the persecution of Christians, the fulfillment of prophecy. It is coming. Are you ready? I'll see you in part 2 talking about prophecy. See ya. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Final Wake Up. I hope this episode sparked a flame in you to march forward in your journey for truth, health, happiness, and meaning. If you want to dive even deeper down the rabbit hole, go to my Instagram at madison.palica. There I have so many highlights dedicated to spreading even more information and value. You can also join the club with my email list, linked in my bio, to stay up to date on all the latest news, sales, and new offerings. Or if you want to talk to me personally, please send me a DM. I would love to hear from you. If you love this episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave an amazing review. Bonus points if you share this to your story and write what you learned. Tag me in it so that I can connect and see how this has actually helped you. If you know somebody who would really appreciate this, or somebody who desperately needs to hear what I talked about in this episode, please send this to them. Together, we can bring light to this world full of confusion and help people thrive. Thank you, and see you next time.